I'm Daniel, a 42-year-old architect in Portland, married to Elise for 15 years. Our life seemed a mosaic of quiet joys, shared coffee at dawn, her laughter at my terrible puns, our daughter Mia's art projects scattered across the dining table. Elise, a curator at a local gallery, had this radiance, a way of making every room feel alive. But lately, her warmth felt distant, like a painting hung just out of reach. I'd catch her staring at her phone, lips twitching into a smile that wasn't for me. "Work?" she'd say, brushing it off, but her eyes dodged mine. I wasn't paranoid, or so I told myself. Marriage ebbs and flows, right? But the signs piled up like unopened mail. She started staying late at the gallery, claiming exhibit preparations. Her perfume changed, sharper, unfamiliar. Once, I found a receipt for a wine bar I'd never been to, tucked in her coat pocket. "A client meeting," she explained, but her voice wavered. I wanted to believe her. I did. Elise was my anchor, the woman who'd held my hand through my father's funeral, who'd danced with me in the rain on our 10th anniversary. Then came the gallery fundraiser. I stood by her side, proud, as she charmed donors in an emerald dress that caught the light. But I noticed her lingering glances at Julian, a photographer whose work she'd recently showcased. He was all charisma, tall, with a disheveled charm and eyes that seemed to know too much. Their laughter felt too intimate, their touches, a hand on his arm, his fingers grazing her back, too deliberate. I sipped my wine, the bitterness pooling in my chest. That night I couldn't sleep. Elisa's breathing was soft beside me, but my mind churned. Was I imagining things? I'd always trusted her, but doubt is a quiet poison. I started paying attention, noticing her late-night texts, the way she'd angle her phone away. I didn't confront her, not yet. I needed proof, something to shatter the illusion or confirm my fears. So, I began watching, not proud of it, but desperate to understand why the woman I loved felt like a stranger. By the next month, the cracks were undeniable. Elise was vibrant, but not with me. She'd hum while getting ready for work, her eyes bright with a secret joy. I felt like a ghost in my own home, unseen, unneeded. Mia, our 10-year-old, asked why Mommy was always gone. I didn't have an answer, but I knew I had to find one, even if it broke me. Julian's name kept surfacing, on her lips, in gallery emails, in my nightmares. I wasn't ready to lose her, but I was already losing myself. The suspicion gnawed at me, a relentless itch I couldn't scratch. I started small, shameful acts, checking Elisa's phone when she showered, glancing at her laptop when she left it open. Nothing blatant, but enough to fuel my unease. A deleted text thread with Julian, a vague email about meeting up after. I hated myself for it, but love makes you desperate, doesn't it? I needed truth, not shadows. One evening, Elise said she had a late meeting. "Don't wait up," she murmured, kissing my forehead absently. I nodded, but my gut twisted. After she left, I drove to the gallery, parking across the street. The lights were off, the place deserted. My heart sank. I called her, no answer. Then, on impulse, I drove to the wine bar from the receipt. There she was, through the window, laughing with Julian at a corner table, their hands brushing over candlelight. It wasn't a meeting. It was a date. I didn't storm in. I sat in my car, hands trembling, watching them. Elise leaned closer, her smile unguarded, the one she used to save for me. Julian's fingers traced her wrist, and she didn't pull away. I drove home, the image burned into my mind. Back in our bedroom, I found her scarf on the dresser, scented with that sharp new perfume. Felt like a stranger's. The next day, I hired a private investigator, a quiet man named Paul with tired eyes. I gave him names, dates, the wine bar receipt. "Be discreet," I said. He nodded, promising a report in a week. Waiting was agony. I played the dutiful husband, cooking Mia's favorite pasta, asking Elise about her day. She'd talk, animated, but her stories were vague, her eyes never meeting mine. I wondered how long she'd been lying. Paul's report came early. Photos, Elise and Julian at a park, her head on his shoulder. Them entering a hotel, his arm around her waist. Messages, too, intercepted from her phone. "Can't stop thinking about you," she'd written. His reply, "You're my muse. My muse." The words cut deeper than any blade. I read the report alone in my office, the house silent except for Mia's faint singing upstairs. Elise was at the gallery, or so she claimed. I didn't cry. I felt hollow, like a building gutted before demolition. 15 years, a daughter, a life built together, reduced to clandestine meetings and stolen touches. But anger simmered beneath the hurt. I didn't want to confront her yet. I wanted her to feel the weight of her betrayal, to understand what she'd shattered. Revenge wasn't my nature, but it was becoming my necessity. I started planning, not sure what shape it would take, but certain it would be precise, deliberate, and devastating. Elise had no idea what was coming. Living with Elise became an act of endurance. I wore a mask, smiling at breakfast, asking about her latest exhibit, kissing her cheek before bed. She didn't notice the strain in my eyes, or maybe she didn't care. Her world was Julian now, her laughter, her late nights, her secret smiles belonged to him. I saw it all, thanks to Paul's updates. More photos, more messages. A love affair blooming in stolen moments. Each piece of evidence was a brick in the wall between us. Mia kept me grounded. She'd chatter about school, her art projects, her dreams of being a painter like Mommy. I'd listen, nodding, but my mind was elsewhere, plotting. I couldn't let Elise's betrayal taint Mia's world. Not yet. So, I played the part, tucking Mia in, reading her stories, all while my heart churned with betrayal's acid. Elise would breeze in late, smelling of that sharp perfume, and I'd greet her with a neutral, "Good day." She'd nod, oblivious to the storm brewing. I started digging deeper, not just into Elise's affair but into Julian. He was 35, unmarried, a rising star in Portland's art scene. His Instagram was a gallery of moody portraits, many of Elise. Her eyes luminous, her smile intimate. Comments gushed, "Stunning muse. You two are magic." Each post was a public wound, proof their connection wasn't just private. I wondered how many knew, how many pitied me. I met Paul again at a diner. He slid a folder across the table. Hotel receipts, a timeline of their meetups, even audio from a bug he'd placed in Julian's car. I listened later, alone, to Elise's voice, soft and unguarded. "I've never felt this alive." Julian's murmur, "Leave him. We could be everything." My hands shook, not with sadness but rage. Leave me? For him? After everything? I began testing Elise, subtle probes to see her reaction. Saw Julian's new exhibit online, I'd say casually. Her cheeks would flush, her words stumbling. "Oh, yeah, he's talented." Or I'd mention staying home together, watching her squirm as she invented excuses. She thought I was clueless, and that was my advantage. I wasn't ready to reveal my hand. I wanted her to feel secure in her deception, to build her castle of lies higher before I tore it down. My plan was forming, though not fully clear. It wouldn't be a shouting match or a divorce filing, too ordinary. I wanted something that would sting, something that would make Elise and Julian face the wreckage they'd caused. I started collecting more than evidence, ideas, connections, ways to turn their affair into their undoing. Mia's laughter echoed in my mind, a reminder of what was at stake. This wasn't just about me. It was about justice, cold and calculated, for the family Elise had betrayed. My days became a dual existence. The husband Elise thought she knew and the man weaving her downfall. I kept up appearances, planning Mia's birthday, joking with Elise over dinner, but my mind was a chessboard, every move calculated. Paul's reports grew thicker. Julian and Elise were reckless now, meeting at his studio, a loft downtown. Photos showed them tangled in each other's arms, oblivious to the world. Their audacity fueled my resolve. I researched Julian's life, scouring public records, social media, even his gallery contracts. He wasn't just a photographer, he had debts, big ones. A failed exhibit in Seattle, a loan for his loft, whispers of a gambling habit. Elise didn't know, or maybe she didn't care. I wondered what she saw in him. Freedom, passion, an escape from our steady life? It didn't matter. His weaknesses were my leverage. I started planting seeds. At a gallery event, I chatted with Elise's boss, Clara, praising Julian's work but mentioning his financial troubles I'd heard about. Clara's brow furrowed. She hadn't known. I suggested Elise was stressed, maybe too close to certain artists. Clara nodded, promising to keep an eye out. I knew she'd watch Elise now, maybe limit her projects with Julian. Small cracks, but they'd grow. At home, I left subtle traps. I'd forget my phone open to Julian's Instagram, watching Elise's reaction. She'd glance away, nervous, but say nothing. Once, I mentioned a fictional colleague caught cheating and how it ruined his career. Elise's fork froze midair, her eyes flickering with guilt. I savored her discomfort, knowing she was trapped in her own lies. Paul uncovered more. Julian was pitching a joint exhibit with Elise, a series of portraits featuring her as his muse. The proposal was bold, public, a slap to my face. They planned to unveil it at a major art festival, banking on its success to boost their careers. I saw my opportunity. If their affair was their masterpiece, I'd make it their ruin. I contacted an old friend, Rachel, a journalist with a knack for exposing scandals. Over coffee, I shared rumors about Julian's debts and his unprofessional ties to a married curator. I didn't name Elise yet. Rachel was intrigued, promising to dig. I knew her article would hit like a sledgehammer, but I needed more. I wanted Elise to feel the betrayal's weight, to see her world unravel as mine had. Mia's birthday came, a bright spot in the darkness. Elise was there, all smiles, but I saw the strain in her eyes. Guilt, maybe, or fear of being caught. I hugged her for the cameras, my touch cold. She didn't notice. That night, I finalized my plan's core. A public reckoning, one that would strip Elise and Julian of their pride, their art, their bond. It was cruel, yes, but so was her betrayal. The game was on, and I was playing to win. The art festival was 3 weeks away, and Elise was consumed with preparations. She'd hum nervously, talking about the exhibit with Julian, unaware I knew every detail. Their portrait series was the centerpiece, a bold declaration of their connection. I saw the mock-ups on her laptop. Elise, radiant, her eyes locked on Julian's lens. Each image was a wound, but I didn't flinch. They were handing me the perfect stage for my revenge. I met Rachel again, this time with a folder. Inside were Paul's photos, blurred to hide Elise's face, but Julian's was clear. I added his financial records, loan defaults, and a tip about his gambling. "This could be big," Rachel said, her eyes gleaming. I asked her to hold the story until the festival's opening night, to maximize impact. She agreed, sensing a career-making scoop. I felt a grim satisfaction. Julian's downfall was in motion. At home, I tightened the screws. I accidentally left a bank statement out, showing a withdrawal I'd made to pay Paul. Elise noticed, asking why. I shrugged, saying, "Just some personal expenses." Her eyes darted, uneasy. I wanted her paranoid, second-guessing every move. I also started praising Clara's oversight at the gallery, hinting Elise's role might be scrutinized. She laughed it off, but her voice was tight. I reached out to a contact at the festival, posing as a concerned donor. I suggested they review Julian's contract, citing rumors of unprofessional conduct. They thanked me, promising a closer look. I knew they'd find his debts, maybe cancel his slot. If not, Rachel's article would seal it. Either way, their exhibit was doomed. Mia sensed the tension. "Are you and Mommy fighting?" she asked one night, her eyes wide. I hugged her, promising everything was fine. It wasn't, but I'd shield her from the fallout. Elise, meanwhile, was distracted, her phone buzzing constantly. I intercepted one message from Julian. "We're so close. Don't let him suspect." Him. Me. The word ignited my anger anew. I planned the final blow. On opening night, I'd attend the festival, smiling by Elise's side. As their exhibit launched, Rachel's article would drop online, exposing Julian's debts and inappropriate ties to a curator. The blurred photos would spark whispers. Everyone would know it was Elise. The gallery would distance itself. Clara would fire her. And their art, their bond, would crumble in public view. I wasn't cruel by nature, but Elise's betrayal had carved something new in me. She'd chosen Julian, built a secret world without me. Now, I'd dismantle it, piece by piece, until she felt the emptiness I'd carried for months. The festival loomed and I was ready. Elise thought she was untouchable, but I held the match to burn her castle down. And I'd watch it fall, stone by stone, with a smile she'd never forget. The festival was 10 days away, and I moved through my life like a shadow, every action deliberate, every word a chess move. Elise was radiant, oblivious, caught in the thrill of her secret with Julian. She'd come home late, her cheeks flushed, talking about the exhibit's final touches. I'd nod, pour her wine, and ask bland questions, all while my mind spun with plans to unravel her world. Her ignorance was my weapon. She thought I was the same devoted Daniel, blind to her lies. I met Paul again, this time at a park bench far from prying eyes. He handed me a USB drive. More audio, more photos, even a video of Elise and Julian at his loft, laughing, their hands entwined. The video was grainy, but her voice was clear. This exhibit will change everything. Julian's reply, "We'll be unstoppable." I clenched my jaw, storing the footage for later. It wasn't just evidence, it was ammunition. At home, I kept the facade tight. Mia's school play was coming up, and I helped her rehearse, her giggles a fleeting balm for my anger. Elise was there, clapping, but her phone buzzed mid-performance. She stepped out, and I saw her silhouette through the auditorium doors, texting furiously. I knew it was Julian. My resolve hardened. Every smile she gave him was a theft from us, from Mia. I contacted the festival's board anonymously, using a burner email. I sent a dossier, Julian's financial troubles, hints of an improper relationship with a curator. Nothing directly naming Elise, but enough to raise flags. I suggested they audit his funding, knowing it would delay or cancel his slot. The board replied, thanking me for the tip. I smiled, imagining Julian's panic when the call came. Rachel, the journalist, was ready. She drafted her article, a scathing exposé on Julian's debts and his unethical ties to a married curator. I reviewed it, ensuring Elise's identity was veiled but unmistakable to those in the art world. The piece would drop online during the festival's opening speech, timed for maximum chaos. I pictured Elise's face, the crowd's whispers, the gallery's swift rejection. It wasn't enough to hurt her. I wanted her to feel exposed, stripped of the life she'd built on lies. Mia asked me to draw with her that night, her crayons spilling across the table. I sketched a house, ours, but it felt hollow, like a blueprint for a home already gone. Elise joined us, her laughter forced. Caught her eye, holding it a beat too long. She looked away, nervous. Good. Let her wonder. The festival was close, and I was a coiled spring, ready to release a reckoning she'd never see coming. Elise was unraveling, though she hid it well. Her smiles were tighter, her excuses flimsier. She'd snap at small things. Mia's spilled juice, my question about her day, then catch herself apologizing too quickly. I saw the guilt in her eyes, the fear that I might know. I fed that fear, subtle but relentless. I'd leave my laptop open to articles about infidelity, or mention a friend whose marriage was crumbling over secrets. Her reactions were telling: pale cheeks, fidgeting hands. Paul's latest report was a goldmine. Julian's loan had been called in, his loft at risk. He was scrambling, begging Elise for help. Her messages to him were frantic. "I'll find a way. We can't lose this." I almost pitied her, but pity drowned in my anger. She was fighting for him, not us. I leaked the loan issue to a gallery rival, knowing it would spread. By week's end, whispers about Julian's instability were circling Portland's art scene. I escalated at home. I changed our Wi-Fi password, claiming a security issue, and asked Elise for her phone to update settings. She hesitated, then handed it over. I didn't snoop, I didn't need to, but her reluctance was confirmation. Later, I forgot a printout of Julian's exhibit proposal on the counter. Elise found it, her eyes wide. "Where'd this come from?" she asked, voice shaking. I shrugged. "Must have been in my work bag." She didn't push, but the seed was planted. The festival board emailed my burner account. Julian's funding was under review, his exhibit on hold pending ethical concerns. I grinned, imagining his desperation. Elise was distracted, canceling dinner plans to meet with sponsors. I knew she was with him, plotting to save their dream. I let her go, tracking her via Paul's GPS tag on her car. They met at a diner, heads close, unaware of the lens capturing every moment. Rachel called, her voice excited. She'd found more dirt. Julian's past affair with a gallery owner, buried but verifiable. It strengthened her article, painting him as a serial opportunist. I told her to include it, ensuring the piece would ruin his reputation beyond repair. For Elise, it would be worse. Her name, though not printed, would be whispered in every art circle, her career tainted by association. Mia's play was a bittersweet anchor. Elise was there, but her mind was elsewhere, her phone lighting up with texts. I sat beside her, my hand on hers, feeling her tension. After, I took Mia for ice cream, letting Elise rush off to work. Alone with my daughter, I vowed to protect her from the fallout. Elise's betrayal had fractured our family, but I'd rebuild it, piece by piece, after I'd torn down her lies. The festival was a week away, and my plan was a symphony, every note poised to shatter her world. The festival was 3 days away, and my plan was a machine, every gear turning. Elise was a ghost in our home, her energy consumed by the exhibit and Julian's crises. She'd barely look at me, her conversations clipped, her excuses transparent. I didn't care. Her distraction gave me space to finalize my revenge, a masterpiece of precision and pain. I wasn't just breaking her affair. I was dismantling her identity, her pride, her future. Paul delivered his final report. Julian was borrowing from shady lenders, his loft now in foreclosure. Elise had wired him money from her personal account, our money, meant for Mia's college fund. The betrayal stung anew, but I used it. I sent proof to Clara, Elise's boss, anonymously, framing it as concern about gallery finances. Clara called Elise for a meeting, and I saw the panic in her eyes when she left. The gallery was circling, sensing blood. I met Rachel at a cafe, her laptop open to the final article. It was brutal. Julian's debts, his past affairs, his inappropriate relationship with a curator, backed by blurred photos and financial records. The headline screamed scandal, and I knew it would trend online the moment it dropped. I gave Rachel the green light, confirming the festival's opening speech as the release time. She grinned, smelling a Pulitzer. I felt no joy, only cold resolve. At home, I left more traps. I accidentally played Paul's audio of Elise and Julian on my laptop, stopping it when she walked in. Her face drained of color. "What was that?" she stammered. I feigned confusion. "Just a podcast." She didn't buy it, but she didn't push. Her paranoia was my ally, keeping her off balance. I also mentioned Clara's scrutiny, casual but pointed. "She seems worried about the gallery's reputation." Elise's hands trembled, but she brushed it off. The festival board emailed. Julian's exhibit was officially canceled, citing contractual issues. I knew Elise would be devastated, but I wanted more than her tears. I wanted her to face the wreckage of her choices in public, surrounded by the art world she loved. I planned to attend the festival, standing by her side as Rachel's article hit, watching her realize her secrets were exposed. It would be her reckoning, and I'd be the silent architect. Mia's drawings covered the fridge, a reminder of what I was fighting for. Elise was barely present, her mind with Julian, her heart already gone. I tucked Mia in, promising a weekend trip after the festival. She didn't need to know her mother's betrayal, not yet. But Elise would know mine. My revenge, sharp and unrelenting, would leave her with nothing but the ashes of her lies. The countdown was on, and I was ready to pull the trigger, my anger a quiet flame, burning brighter with every step. The festival was tomorrow, and the air in our home was thick with unspoken truths. Elise was a wreck, though she hid it behind forced smiles. She'd learned of Julian's exhibit cancellation, her voice cracking as she told me it was just a setback. I nodded, feigning sympathy, but my heart was stone. She'd poured our money, our future, into his sinking ship, and now she'd face the consequences. I was done being her fool. I double-checked everything. Rachel's article was locked and loaded, set to publish at 7 p.m. during the festival's opening remarks. Paul had sent a final photo. Elise and Julian at his loft, her face tear-streaked, his hands on her shoulders. They were crumbling, and I hadn't even struck yet. I burned the photo in our backyard, the flames a promise of what was coming. Clara had called Elise again, her tone sharp. Paul's tip about the money had worked. The gallery was auditing her accounts. I left one last trap. I printed a screenshot of Julian's loan default notice, leaving it in Elise's car with a note. Be careful who you trust. She found it that night, her hands shaking as she stormed in. Did you do this? She demanded, eyes wild. I played dumb. Do what? That's not mine. She didn't believe me, but doubt was enough. She was unraveling, her affair a house of cards in a storm. I called Rachel, confirming the article's timing. She'd added a teaser on her outlet's social media, vague but ominous. Tomorrow, a Portland art scandal breaks. The post was already gaining traction, and I knew Elise and Julian would see it. Let them squirm. I also tipped a rival gallery, suggesting they court Elise's top client during the festival chaos. Her career was a domino, and I was pushing it over. Mia was my anchor. She sensed the tension, asking why Mommy was sad. I hugged her, promising a fun festival trip. I'd shield her from the fallout, let her see her mother's world as magical for one more night. Elise was distracted, packing her dress, her phone buzzing with Julian's texts. I saw one. We'll get through this. No, you won't, I thought. I kissed Elise's cheek, my touch icy, and she flinched. Good. She felt the shift, even if she didn't understand it. I lay awake, the plan a map in my mind. Tomorrow, I'd walk into the festival, Elise on my arm, the dutiful husband. As the article dropped, I'd watch her face, see the moment her lies collapsed. The art world would turn on her, Julian would be a pariah, and I'd stand untouched, the orchestrator of their ruin. It was cruel, yes, but so was her betrayal, Mia's future stolen. My trust shattered. The eve of reckoning was here, and I was ready to light the fuse. The festival night arrived, a glittering facade of art and ambition. Elise wore her emerald dress, the same one from the fundraiser, her smile brittle but convincing. I played my role, suit crisp, hand on her waist, nodding at her colleagues. The venue buzzed, galleries, artists, donors, all oblivious to the bomb I'd set. Mia was with a sitter, safe from the storm. I glanced at Elise, her eyes scanning for Julian. He was there, I knew, lurking in the crowd, his exhibit gone but his ego intact. The opening speech began, a curator droning about creativity. I checked my watch. 6:55 p.m. 5 minutes until Rachel's article hit. Elise was distracted, whispering to Clara, who looked stern. The audit had spooked her, and I savored the irony. She was fighting to save her job while her affair was about to implode. Julian approached, his charm dimmed, eyes darting. He murmured something to Elise, and she nodded, tense. I smiled at him, my gaze ablade. He flinched. At 7 p.m., phones buzzed. The crowd stirred, heads bending over screens. Rachel's article was live. I watched Elise, her face pale as she pulled out her phone. The headline blared, Portland photographer's debts and scandalous affair rock art scene. Whispers spread, eyes turning to Julian, then Elise. The blurred photos were enough, her silhouette unmistakable to those who knew her. Clara's jaw tightened, and she pulled Elise aside, voice low but sharp. Julian tried to slip away, but a reporter cornered him, questions flying. Elise returned, her eyes wet, searching for me. Daniel, we need to talk, she whispered. But I shook my head, my expression cold. Later, I said, guiding her toward the main hall. The crowd parted, stares heavy. Her colleagues avoided her, donors murmured. Her world was collapsing, and I was the silent architect watching every crack form. Rachel's article detailed Julian's loans, his past affairs, his unethical tie to a curator. The art world was merciless. Galleries dropped him, sponsors pulled out. Elisa's name wasn't printed, but the implication was clear. Clara fired her on the spot, citing the audit and reputational risk. Elise stood frozen, her dress a cruel contrast to her ruin. I offered my arm, my voice calm. Let's go home. She followed, numb, the weight of her betrayal crushing her. In the car, she sobbed, begging to explain. I stayed silent, my anger a quiet fire. She didn't know I'd orchestrated it all. Paul's evidence, Rachel's pen, the board's audit. She thought it was fate, but it was me. The festival was her stage, and I'd turned it into her fall. This was just the beginning. My revenge wasn't done. She'd feel the full cost of her lies, and I'd ensure it cut deeper than she could imagine. The drive home from the festival was a funeral for our marriage. Elise sat beside me, her sobs ragged, her emerald dress crumpled like a discarded dream. I stared at the road, my hands steady on the wheel, my heart a furnace of cold triumph. Rachel's article had done its work. Julian was a pariah, Elisa's career in ruins. The art world's whispers followed her like a shadow, and Clara's firing was just the start. But I wasn't done. Revenge, I'd learned, was a slow poison, and I had more to administer. At home, Elise tried to speak, her voice trembling. Daniel, please, let me explain. I cut her off, my tone ice. Not tonight. I left her in the living room, her face buried in her hands, and checked on Mia, asleep, oblivious to the wreckage. Her innocence was my anchor, the reason I'd shield her from this storm. But Elise, she'd feel every gust. I slept in the guest room, the silence between us louder than any argument. The next morning, I woke to messages. Rachel's article was viral, shared across art forums, local news, even national blogs. Julian's name was mud, his loft seized, his clients gone. Elisa's phone buzzed with notifications. Colleagues distancing themselves, sponsors canceling her projects. She sat at the kitchen table, staring at her coffee, her eyes hollow. I made breakfast for Mia, my movements mechanical, ignoring Elisa's pleas for a conversation. I planned the next phase. I met with a lawyer, Sarah, discreetly. I wanted Elise out of the house, but not through divorce. Not yet. I needed her to leave voluntarily, to feel the weight of her choices. Sarah suggested a legal separation, citing Elisa's financial misconduct with our savings. I agreed, but first I'd push her to breaking. I contacted Elisa's top client, a collector named Victor, posing as a concerned friend. I hinted at her unreliable behavior, planting doubts. Victor pulled his support, and I knew she'd hear soon. Elise tried to play normal for Mia, but her mask was cracking. Mia asked why Mommy was sad, and Elisa's smile faltered. I stepped in, promising a park day, keeping Mia's world bright. That night, I left a printed email from Clara on the counter, detailing Elisa's firing for ethical breaches. Elise found it, her gasp audible. You knew, she whispered, eyes accusing. I shrugged. It's public now. Her guilt was my leverage, and I wielded it without mercy. The art world wasn't done with her. A rival curator posted online, calling Elisa's involvement with Julian a betrayal of trust. The post spread and her reputation bled out. I watched, silent, as she crumbled, knowing this was my doing. Rachel, Paul, the board, every domino I tipped. But the final blow was coming, one that would leave her with nothing but regret. Elisa's fall was public now, and I orchestrated its crescendo. The art community, once her haven, turned vicious. Online forums dissected her affair, her name unspoken but implied in every thread about Julian's scandal. I fueled the fire anonymously, posting on art blogs about a curator's unethical ties, linking to Rachel's article. The comments were brutal, speculation, judgment, calls for her blacklisting. Each one was a needle, and I knew she felt them all. I escalated at home. I invited Clara for dinner, claiming it was to clear the air. Elise was horrified but couldn't refuse without arousing suspicion. Clara was polite but cold. Her questions pointed, "How did you miss Julian's debts?" Elise stammered, her face flushed. I played the supportive husband, but my silence spoke louder. After Clara left, Elise broke down, accusing me of humiliating her. I didn't deny it, my eyes hard. "You humiliated yourself." Victor, her top client, emailed her, withdrawing from all future projects, citing reputational concerns. I'd ensured he'd see the online chatter, and his exit was the final nail in her career's coffin. Elise read the email at breakfast, her hands shaking. Mia was at school, sparing her the sight of her mother's collapse. "How is this happening?" Elise whispered. I sipped my coffee, saying nothing. She didn't know I was the architect, but she felt my shadow. I pushed further, contacting a local art magazine. Posing as a concerned reader, I suggested a follow-up on Julian's scandal, focusing on the curator's role. The editor bit, publishing a piece that didn't name Elise but described her job, her gallery, her close collaboration with Julian. It was enough. Her former colleagues stopped calling, her inbox empty except for bills. She was a ghost in her own world, and I'd made it so. Mia remained my priority. I took her to art classes, shielding her from Elise's despair. But Elise's absence grew. Mia noticed her mother's late nights, her red eyes. "Is Mommy okay?" she asked. I hugged her, promising, "We'll be fine." I meant it. Elise's betrayal had fractured us, but I'd rebuild for Mia, even if it meant destroying her mother first. That night, Elise confronted me, her voice raw. "You're doing this, aren't you? Sabotaging me." I met her gaze, unflinching. "You did this," I said, my words a blade. "You chose him." She flinched, tears falling, but I felt no pity. My revenge was a mirror, showing her the cost of her lies. The final act was near. A move so cruel, so precise, it would leave her with nothing but the truth she'd run from. I was ready to end it, to watch her world burn to ash while I stood, untouched, with Mia's hand in mine. I wanted Elise to leave, not just our home but the life she'd taken for granted. My revenge needed a climax, something that would break her spirit without touching her physically. I'd already stripped her career, her reputation, her lover. Now I'd take her pride. I planned a public event, a charity auction at the gallery where she'd once shown. I volunteered to help organize, ensuring Elise was invited as a former curator. A cruel nod to her fall. The auction was my stage. I worked with Clara, who was eager to distance the gallery from Elise's scandal. I suggested donating a piece from Elise's personal collection, a painting she'd bought with Julian, a symbol of their bond. Clara agreed, unaware of its significance. I forged Elise's signature on the donation form, a betrayal that mirrored hers. The painting, a vibrant abstract, was listed as from an anonymous donor. But I'd ensure she knew. I spread word of the auction through art circles, emphasizing the mystery donor. Rachel helped, her outlet hyping the event, hinting at a fallen curator's contribution. Elise saw the buzz. She called me, voice shaking, asking why her painting was listed. I feigned ignorance. Maybe someone found it? Her silence was heavy, laced with dread. She suspected me, but she had no proof, just as I'd had none at first. The night of the auction, I brought Elise, insisting it was for Mia's sake. She loved art events. Elise wore a plain dress, her confidence gone, her eyes scanning the crowd for judgment. The painting came up for bid, displayed under bright lights. The auctioneer read a note I'd written. Donated by a curator who lost her way. Gasps rippled through the room. Elise froze, her face ashen. The crowd whispered, eyes on her. She knew it was her painting, her shame laid bare. Bids soared, the painting selling for thousands. A final irony, her love for Julian profiting the gallery that fired her. I stood beside her, my expression neutral, but inside, I burned with grim satisfaction. She left before the event ended, her steps unsteady. In the car, she was silent, tears streaming. I didn't comfort her. This was her reckoning. The moment she saw her betrayal's cost, reflected in the art she cherished. At home, I gave her the separation papers Sarah had prepared. "Leave," I said, my voice flat. "For Mia's sake." She nodded, broken, packing a bag that night. She moved to a cheap apartment, her career gone, her name toxic. I'd taken everything, her love, her pride, her place in our world. Mia asked where Mommy went, and I said, "She's figuring things out." The truth could wait. My revenge was complete, a cold, cruel masterpiece. And I felt no remorse, only the quiet weight of justice. Elise was gone, her absence a void in our home but a relief in my heart. Mia and I adjusted, building a routine around school, art classes, and quiet evenings. I told Mia her mother was working on herself, a half-truth to protect her. Elise called sometimes, her voice small, asking to see Mia. I allowed brief visits, supervised, ensuring Mia felt loved but safe. Elise was a stranger now, her betrayal a wall I'd never dismantle. The art world moved on. Julian vanished, his loft sold, his name a cautionary tale. Rachel's article won awards, and she thanked me privately, unaware of the full scope of my role. Clara's gallery thrived, free of Elise's stain. I stayed in the shadows, my revenge known only to me. The auction painting hung in a donor's home, a silent trophy of my victory. I didn't gloat. I'd done what was necessary, no more, no less. I focused on Mia. Her drawings filled our walls, her laughter my purpose. I hired a therapist to help her process Elise's absence, framing it as a temporary change. Mia was resilient, but I saw her sadness, the questions she didn't ask. I vowed to be enough, father, mother, protector. We planted a garden, a symbol of new roots, and I found peace in its growth, a contrast to the destruction I'd wrought. Elise struggled. Paul, still on retainer, sent updates. She worked at a bookstore, her apartment bare, her social circle gone. She tried to pitch a new exhibit, but no gallery would touch her. Her pride was dust, her affair a regret she'd carry forever. I didn't pity her. She'd chosen this path and I'd merely lit the way. Yet, I wondered if she'd learned, if her tears were for us or herself. I rebuilt my life too. I took on new architectural projects, my designs sharper, bolder, as if my anger had honed my craft. Colleagues noticed my focus, unaware of the fire behind it. I didn't date, trust was a wound that hadn't healed. Mia was my world, and our bond grew stronger, a fortress against the past. I framed her latest painting, hanging it where Elise's once stood, a quiet reclaiming of our home. Sometimes, I'd see Elise's scarf, forgotten in a drawer, and feel a pang. Not love, but memory. 15 years couldn't vanish, but they could be buried. My revenge had been cruel, yes, but it was justice, a balance for the family she'd fractured. I looked at Mia, asleep, her face peaceful, and knew I'd do it again. The storm was over, and we were whole, even if scarred. Elise's betrayal was a shadow, but I'd built a life in the light, and no one would take that from us. A year passed, and our life was steady, a rhythm of school, work, and Mia's art. She was 11 now, her questions about Elise sharper but her spirit unbroken. I told her truths in pieces. Mommy made mistakes, needed time. Mia nodded, trusting me, and I vowed to keep that trust sacred. Elise lived across town, a faded figure in our story, her visits rare and strained. She'd aged, her vibrance dulled, her eyes carrying the weight of her choices. I saw her once by chance at a cafe. She was alone, reading, her fingers tracing the rim of a cup. She didn't see me and I didn't approach. There was nothing to say. Her life was small now. Bookstore shifts, no art, no Julian. Paul's final report said she tried to contact him, but he'd vanished, leaving her with nothing but memories of their ruin. I felt no satisfaction, only closure. My revenge had worked, not because it hurt her but because it freed me. The art world forgot her. Rachel's article was old news, Julian a footnote. I stayed connected, attending gallery events, but never spoke of Elise. My designs won awards, my name respected, my life rebuilt on my terms. Mia's paintings were exhibited at her school, and I beamed, seeing her talent bloom. She was my legacy, not Elise's betrayal. Our home was ours, every trace of her affair erased. New furniture, new colors, a new start. Yet the shadow lingered. Late at night, I'd think of Elise's laughter, our early years, the woman I'd loved before she chose Julian. I didn't miss her, but I mourned the illusion, the trust she'd shattered. Revenge had been my catharsis, a cruel necessity to reclaim my dignity. I wondered if she understood, if she saw her lies cost in the mirror each day. I hoped so, not for cruelty but for justice. Mia asked to visit Elise one weekend, and I agreed, driving her to the apartment. Elise was nervous, her smile fragile, but she hugged Mia tightly. I stayed in the car, watching. Mia returned, quiet, saying, "Mommy's sad, but she loves me." I nodded, driving home, knowing love wasn't enough to undo betrayal. Elise would always be Mia's mother, but never my wife again. I stood in our garden, Mia's flowers blooming, and felt the weight lift. My revenge was a story told, its pages closed. Elise's betrayal had shaped me, but it didn't define me. I was Daniel, father, architect, survivor. Mia ran out, paint on her hands, and I laughed, pulling her close. The future was ours, built on truth, not lies. And as the sun set, I knew we'd thrive, no matter what shadows lingered, because I'd fought for us, and we'd won.